It was an ordinary Tuesday evening, the kind where the sky blushed in soft pinks, the wine glasses were half full, and the clink of silverware echoed through a quiet suburban kitchen. Claire sat across from Daniel at their polished oak table. She'd spent an hour preparing his favorite meal: lemon chicken, roasted vegetables, warm bread. Not that he noticed. He scrolled absently through his phone, thumb flicking faster than the clock's steady tick. Claire, 45, tucked a loose strand of hair behind her ear. Her hands trembled slightly. Lately, conversation between them had felt like walking across thin ice. But tonight she tried. "How was your day?" she asked softly. Daniel didn't look up. "Same," he muttered, then set his phone down with a sigh. The sigh was new, heavy, final. "We need to talk, Dash." Claire's heart caught, fork halfway to her mouth. She blinked. "Of course, what about?" Daniel leaned back in his chair, cool, distant. Eyes that once lit up seeing her, now flickered with disinterest. "Claire," he began, voice clipped, rehearsed. "You've changed, Dash." Silence. Claire's throat tightened. "You've aged," he continued, as if reciting a fact about the weather. "I need someone who inspires me again, Dash." The words landed like stones, one after another, heavy, crushing. Claire stared at him, eyes wide, breath shallow. "What?" "Daniel, after 20 years. You're saying this now. It's not personal, Dash." He stood, gathered his jacket from the back of the chair. "It's life. We grow apart. And honestly, you let yourself fade, Dash." She opened her mouth. No words came. Her pulse roared in her ears. "I've met someone, Dash." His voice was almost gentle now. "She's younger. She makes me feel alive again, Dash." Alive. Claire clenched her fists beneath the table. "Daniel, I gave you everything." Her voice cracked. "I was here when you had nothing, when we built this life, Dash. And now," he shrugged, "I want more, Dash." His phone buzzed. Without a second glance at her, he answered it. "I'll be there soon, Dash." With that, he walked out of the kitchen, out of their home, out of her life. The front door clicked shut. Claire sat frozen, fork still on her plate, steam rising from the forgotten meal. And then, her chest heaved. The first sob escaped, raw and ragged. She buried her face in trembling hands. Alone, not just in the room, but in her soul. Somewhere, beneath the heartbreak, a flicker of something stirred. Not yet a flame, but a spark. Small, fierce. Claire barely remembered how she got from the table to her bedroom that night, or how long she lay curled beneath the cold weight of the comforter. When the sun rose, it didn't matter. When it set, she barely noticed. The days blurred, one into the next. Time was meaningless when the air felt too heavy to breathe. She cried until there were no tears left, only the hollow ache of abandonment. The phone rang, messages pinged. At first, well-meaning friends. "So sorry to hear, Claire Dash. Come out with us this weekend. Don't be alone, Dash." But beneath the voices, she heard it. The whisper of judgment. She let herself go, Dash. What did she expect? Daniel deserved better, Dash. They didn't know. They hadn't seen the nights she sat up, caring for him through sickness. The years she sacrificed dreams for stability. The silent moments she gave, hoping love would one day fill the widening space between them. Now, she stared at her reflection, eyes swollen, hair unkempt. A stranger. Too old, Dash. His words echoed, sharper each time. At the grocery store, she flinched beneath the glances. Was it her imagination, or did the cashier look at her with pity? At the cafe, she caught two women whispering, "There she is, poor thing, Dash." Her world shrank. Claire stopped going out, stopped answering calls, pulled the curtains tight. She existed in shadows, breath shallow, movement slow. Inside, a war raged, between despair and a fragile will that refused, somehow, to die. On the fifth sleepless night, she sat at the edge of the bed, trembling. A small, battered notebook caught her eye on the nightstand. An old one, from before. She opened it with trembling fingers. Pages filled with her words, her poems. Memories of a woman who once burned with life, who sang, who danced, who wrote with reckless joy. Tears blurred the ink. Where did she go? Claire whispered. Is there anything left? In the silent answer, something stirred. No louder than a breath, no brighter than a spark. But there, in sparks, given breath, can become flames. The box was heavier than it looked. Claire pulled it from the closet with trembling hands. Dust clouded the air as she pried it open. Inside, forgotten fragments of a life she'd locked away. Playbills, yellowed with age. Stage photos, edges curled. A program from West Side Story, her first lead. And there, a glossy black and white photo. Her, arms outstretched beneath stage lights. Eyes alight. Alive. Claire traced the image with her fingertip. I used to be her, she whispered. But life had taken her voice. Years of sacrifice. Of raising a home, serving others. Of trading passion for practicality. The stage had dimmed. She told herself it was childish, that dreams had an expiration date. But tonight, staring at the past laid bare before her, the old ache returned. The longing. As if summoned, her phone buzzed. A text from Lauren, her oldest friend and fellow dreamer. Lauren, community players are holding open auditions. Come with me? Just for fun dash. Claire stared at the message. Her first instinct, no, it's too late, too foolish. But something deeper answered. A voice not entirely silenced. Just for fun dash. She typed, okay dash. Fingers shaking. Heart pounding. The next morning, Claire stood before her bathroom mirror. She brushed out her hair, applied makeup with careful hands. Not to impress, not for anyone else, for herself. She rummaged through the closet, choosing a simple dress. Not glamorous, not young, but hers. Driving to the theater, doubt gnawed at her. What if they laughed? What if she couldn't find her voice? She parked anyway. Outside the old community playhouse, a line of hopeful faces buzzed with nervous energy. Claire hesitated at the door. Too old, Daniel's voice whispered. But then, another voice. Soft, steady. You were never too old. You just stopped believing dash. Claire lifted her chin, stepped through the door. Inside, beneath faded velvet curtains, the stage awaited. A place where age meant nothing. Where the soul, not the skin, commanded light. She took a seat, waited for her name to be called. And when it was she rose. One breath, one step, back toward the woman she had been. And perhaps the woman she could still become. The community playhouse smelled of old wood, dust, and dreams. Claire stood just inside the door, clutching her number in both hands. Around her, a sea of youth. Bright eyes, confident laughter. Limbs loose with possibility. Girls in dance tights stretched casually. Young men recited lines in deep, resonant tones. Claire felt small, out of place, invisible. What am I doing here? Her heart thudded in her chest. Every instinct screamed, leave before you humiliate yourself. But her feet remained rooted. Memory stirred. A voice from within whispered, you came this far, don't run now. The director, a wiry man with silver hair and sharp eyes, called out, Number 27, Claire Dash. A spotlight seemed to sear through her. Heads turned. Claire rose, legs trembling. She climbed the steps to the stage. The boards creaked beneath her feet. Just breathe, one note at a time, Dash. The pianist looked up, warm and patient. What are you singing today? Claire swallowed hard. You'll never walk alone, Dash. The pianist nodded. First note struck. Claire's mouth opened and air escaped without sound. A titter of laughter from the back row. Heat flooded her cheeks. She almost fled. But then, she closed her eyes. Saw her father's face in the front row of long-forgotten nights. He had always said, sing from here, Dash. His hand would rest over her heart. She inhaled. Tried again. This time, a note. Soft, shaky. Another. Stronger. Her voice unfurled like a bird released. Each word laced with raw ache, with hope. When you walk through a storm, the room hushed. No more whispers. No more snickers. Just the sound of a woman reclaiming herself. Claire sang through tears. Not for a part. Not for applause. For the little girl who once believed. For the woman who had been told she was too old, Dash. Final note held steady, ringing through the rafters. Silence followed. A beat too long. Then the director leaned forward, whispering to the assistant beside him. Brows lifted, eyes softened. Claire stood frozen, breathless, and for the first time in months, she smiled. A real, radiant smile. The first step back had been taken, and it echoed louder than any applause. Morning light spilled through the windows of the old theater. Dust motes danced in the beams. Claire stood in front of the mirrored wall, barely recognized the reflection staring back. The first dance rehearsal had nearly broken her. Steps too fast, breath too short. She'd gone home sore, defeated. I'm too old for this, Dash. But something deeper answered, no, you're not done yet. Day by day, the old voice, the voice that sang, that sword grew louder. The montage began. Claire at a small piano, voice coach leaning in. Breathe from here, she instructed, pressing gently against Claire's ribcage. Claire sang. Notes trembled, then steadied. She grinned, breathless. Next, dance studio. A young choreographer clapped to the beat. Claire stumbled at first, feet sluggish, head spinning. But with each pass, one step smoother, one whirl lighter. She laughed mid-spin, eyes sparkling. The others clapped. Costume fitting. A seamstress pinned fabric around her waist. Hold your head up, she said. Claire obeyed, a queen in silk and velvet. In the mirror, her eyes caught her own. For the first time in years, they gleamed. Offstage moments bloomed too. A new friend, young soprano, bright and eager, slipped an arm through hers. You inspire me, the girl whispered. Claire blinked back tears. Late nights turned to laughter. Coffee shared between rehearsals. Stories exchanged woman to woman, dreamer to dreamer. The theater became home. The cast became family. And Claire became herself again. Weeks blurred. Muscle memory returned. Voice grew richer. The lines on her face remained. But now they held pride, not shame. She moved with grace, with joy, with purpose. No longer the woman abandoned at a kitchen table. Now, a woman reborn beneath the lights. And as the premiere neared, she stood in the wings one night after rehearsal, closed her eyes, heard the hum of an empty house, and whispered to the darkness, "I am not too old. I am just beginning dash." The theater was thick with tension, a run-through of the hardest scene. Claire waited in the wings, breath steady. She tugged once at her fitted costume, smoothed the fabric. The stage manager called, "Places dash." Lights dimmed. Music swelled. Claire stepped into the glow. A moment of silence. Then her voice rang out. Firm, commanding. Not timid, not meek. "This house, this life will not define me, dash." Lines sharp as glass. Emotion raw beneath every word. Her stage partner, younger and seasoned, faltered for a beat, caught off guard by her fire. The audience, a handful of invited friends, crew, and directors, leaned forward. Silent, spellbound. In the wings, the director whispered to the assistant, "She owns it now, dash." Word spread quickly. Between curtain calls and costume changes. From tech crew to makeup artist to the cafe next door. "You should see her, Claire. She's incredible, dash." By the next rehearsal, the whispers had turned to eager stares. Eyes followed her through the halls. Soft nods, warm smiles. Even the sharp-tongued choreographer clapped her shoulder. "Where were you hiding all this?" Claire only smiled. A knowing smile. She walked taller now. Her voice, once hesitant in conversation, now resonated with quiet strength. Offstage, something else shifted. Claire found herself laughing freely. Coffee dates with castmates ran late. She chose her wardrobe with intention again, no longer blending into the background. And in those fleeting moments before sleep, as she lay beneath warm blankets, she no longer heard her ex-husband's voice. Too old, dash. No. Powerful, beautiful, enough, dash. One night, alone in the dressing room after a run-through, she stared into the mirror. Stage makeup bold against her skin. Eyes alive with purpose. She whispered to her reflection, "Look at you, dash. They're all watching now, dash." And she meant it. The theater buzzed with last-minute preparations. Velvet seats dusted, programs stacked, lights tested. Claire stood backstage, dress rehearsal complete. Costume hugged her form, voice warm from hours of practice. A soft knock on the dressing room door. Her friend, Jenna, peeked in, brows raised, a hesitant smile. "Claire, you should know, dash." She stepped inside, phone in hand. "Daniel's coming, dash." Claire blinked, heart caught for a beat. With her, Jenna added softly, "That new one, the model, dash." For a moment, the old wounds pressed in. That dinner, his words, "Too old. I need someone who inspires me, dash." The mirror reflected her now. Bold makeup, sharp eyes, a queen in lace and satin. Claire inhaled, held it, released. Let them come, Dash. Voice steady, eyes fierce. Words spread through the cast. Whispers rippled backstage. Did you hear? He's coming, Dash. With her, Claire's ex. Sympathetic glances followed her through corridors. But Claire walked tall, chin lifted. She would not shrink. Not now. Later that evening, as the house lights dimmed for final rehearsal, Claire stood alone in the wings. The empty theater hummed with potential. She whispered to the shadows, "See me now, Daniel. See who I am, without you, Dash." Opening night approached fast. Tickets sold out. The director clapped her hands. "Ready, everyone? This is your moment, Dash." Claire smiled, no longer afraid, no longer waiting to be chosen. She would take the stage. For herself. The theater swelled with voices. Laughter, programs rustling, anticipation buzzing through velvet seats. A full house, every row occupied. Center aisle, Daniel arrived late. New girlfriend on his arm. He smiled, cool and smug. Claire's name printed in bold on the program. Lead roll, Claire Bennett. He smirked, folded the booklet closed. Backstage, Claire stood in the narrow wings. Stage lights bled gold across the curtains. Her castmates whispered final cues, breathless, nervous. But Claire stood still, eyes closed, hands pressed to her chest. "You are not the woman he left, Dash." Her own voice, clear within. "You are more, Dash." The memory of that night flickered. His cold stare over the dinner table. "You've aged. You no longer inspire me, Dash." She inhaled, deeper now. Feelings surged, grief, betrayal, then washed clean. In their place, fire, resolve. Stage manager called softly. "Places, Dash." Claire moved. Graceful, certain, heels clicking against the polished floor. She reached the mark behind the curtain. First seen hers alone. The overture began, rich strings filling the room. Curtains parted. Spotlight struck. She stepped forward. The stage embraced her. The audience faded, a sea of shadows and breath. But in the third row, aisle seat, a familiar silhouette. Daniel, watching, arms crossed, expression unreadable. Claire's pulse fluttered, then steadied. "This stage belongs to me, Dash." Music swelled. Claire opened her mouth and sang. The first note floated clear, pure, commanding. A hush swept the room. Heads lifted, spines straightened. Daniel shifted in his seat, uncrossing his arms. Eyes narrowing. Claire's voice soared, each word wrapped in strength, in life. Years of silence, dreams now blooming in every breath. "See me, Dash. Hear me, Dash. I am still here, Dash." She danced the stage like she owned it. Every movement precise, every lyric a triumph. When her first number ended, the theater erupted. Thunderous applause. Daniel clapped too, almost reflexively, eyes wide, mouth parted. For the first time, he saw her, not as the woman he left, but as the star reborn. The second act began. The theater dimmed once more. A single spotlight cut the dark. Claire stood center stage. The orchestra swelled beneath her. A deep, resonant chord. She breathed in, slow, steady, and sang. Her voice emerged, low and velvet at first, drawing the audience in, note by note. The melody rose, richer, wider, like waves breaking upon the room. Daniel sat frozen, a sip of wine forgotten in his hand. Beside him, his new partner leaned in. "She's magnificent, Dash." The words sliced through the air. Daniel blinked, as if waking from a fog. Claire's every movement was poised, not a trace of hesitation. Each line of the song poured from her with grace, from her soul. Years of pain transformed into power. Years of loss reborn as art. She glided across the stage, arms outstretched, eyes shining. Daniel shifted in his seat, his throat dry. She was never this. No, she had been. He'd just stopped seeing her. Claire's gaze swept the crowd, calm, unwavering. For a moment, her eyes met his. She held the gaze. A single beat, then sang on, voice stronger still. A hush spread through the theater. No coughs, no rustles of programs, just breath held in collective awe. Her final note rang out, clear, pure, then faded, lingering like a memory. Silence, and then applause, first scattered, then crashing like thunder. Audience to their feet, a standing ovation. Daniel rose too, slower than the others. Face pale, the new partner glanced sideways, smirking. You let that go? Daniel's jaw tightened, regret blooming behind his eyes. Backstage, Claire heard the ovation. She pressed a hand to her chest, tears welling, not of sadness, but of release, of reclaiming herself. Out front, Daniel sat back down, head low, but the applause roared on. For the woman he'd left behind, who had now stepped into her light. The curtain lowered, then rose again. Claire stood alone beneath the lights. The applause thundered on, unrelenting. A sea of faces rose to their feet, smiling, cheering. Her breath caught, tears welled, but these tears held no sorrow, only triumph. She bowed deeply, once, twice. A soft smile played on her lips. She had done it. Not for him, not for anyone, for herself. Backstage swarmed with voices. Flowers, hugs, photos. Claire stood in the wings, gown shimmering beneath dim lights. Her heart full, steady. She heard the murmur before she saw him. Daniel's here dash. She turned slowly. There he stood, awkward in the crowd. Suit crisp, tie crooked, eyes darting, searching. Finally, they met hers. He approached, steps hesitant. Claire remained still, poised. The man who had once shattered her stood inches away now. Smaller somehow, voice low, uncertain. You've changed, dash. Claire tilted her head. A softness touched her gaze. No, she said gently. I finally remembered who I am, dash. For a breathless moment, he stared, words caught behind parted lips. But Claire was already turning, head high, back straight, walking away. The crowd parted before her, and as the theater doors swung open to the night, the cool air kissed her skin. She smiled, free, alive, more herself than she had ever been. Months passed. The stage no longer felt foreign beneath Claire's feet. It felt like home. The community theater hummed with life. Costumes rustled backstage. Scuffed shoes tapped nervously on worn floorboards. Children and young women gathered in a circle, eyes wide, voices high with excitement. At the center, Claire, calm, radiant, a gentle leader now. She knelt before a trembling girl of 12, tiny hands clutching a sheet of lyrics. I'm scared, the girl whispered. What if they laugh at me? Claire smiled softly. Let them, she said. Your voice isn't for them, it's for you, dash. She squeezed the child's hand. And remember, a woman is never too old to shine. She only needs to remember her light, dash. Nearby, an older student watched, eyes glistening, inspired. Another tightened her ponytail, braver now. Claire rose. Curtains fluttered in the distance. She walked forward, past familiar spotlights, past the worn velvet wings. The stage awaited. She placed her hand on the piano, feeling the hum of life beneath the keys. A new performance was about to begin, but this time, her greatest role wasn't center stage. It was here, behind the scenes, nurturing voices, igniting sparks. The house lights dimmed. From the wings, Claire watched the first student step out. Back straight, voice steady, brave. In the darkness, her own voice echoed once more. Not in words, but in every young soul who now dared to shine. Voiceover fading. A woman is never too old to shine. She only needs to remember her light dash. Final shot. Stage lights glowing. Claire's silhouette framed in the wings. Watching. Smiling. The curtain falls.